All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as Brian Baldinger stopped by on 95.7 The Game, and he had some interesting things to say. So we'll review what Baldy said and let you hear some of it as well. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out, so get there early. Get some brisket chili, talk to Damon and Mary, tell them that Krug sent you. And this video is also sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. We've done it 5 times. 5 times we've won this year. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get that first deposit matched up to $200. All right, Brian Baldinger was on our channel last year. He's one of my favorites. Saw him at the Super Bowl. Baldy is a good friend. Been friends for a long time. He does a regular hit on the radio on 95.7 The Game. Matt Nahagian got Baldy to come on once a week on his radio station, and it's a great segment. And this week, of course, they did a little review of the Buffalo Bills' 35-10 win over the 49ers. And first topic was Brock Purdy. Baldy, how did Brock Purdy play is the question. And let's hear from Baldy first. We'll hear from Baldy and then I'll comment. Here's Brian Baldinger on Brock Purdy.
I don't think he's playing great by any stretch, but at the same time, I don't know exactly what he's supposed to do. Like, they're not getting any big plays, and that kind of falls on the quarterback right now. So that's where they're struggling right now. And the finished drives, the turnovers are killing him. And they're not taking the ball away. So you're -3 on the road in that conditions. You got Juice fumbling at the goal line and, Deebo fumbling, deep in his territory and a kickoff. Like, these things are killing his team right now. I just think, I don't know how much he's regressed. He's not making plays beyond the X's and O's like we are used to seeing on the movement type plays when the play breaks down and he can, scramble and find Kittle that goes, for 50, like those type of plays aren't really happening right now. So I can't say there's just one thing. I think he still sees the field very well. I think he's still accurate with the football. All the stats say that he is, and they're still getting some chunk plays, but, they're not putting drives together. They're putting themselves in bad predicaments, and it's tough to they're not good enough to overcome it right now.
All right, there you go. Brian Baldinger talking a little bit about Purdy. Okay, a couple things that stand out. Basically, what Brian's describing is that Brock's still Brock, except the results are not, he's not getting the results. So what's going on? I watched the All-22 a little bit late last night of the first half, and what I see that the equation for Brock Purdy is breaking down on both ends. It's breaking down in that he's trying to hold the ball and let his receivers work themselves open down the field. They're getting no separation. Ricky Pearsall can't separate. George Kittle's 30, only ran a handful of routes all day. They're using him a lot as a blocker. Jawan Jennings, good player, doesn't really separate, doesn't have a lot of speed, which is why he was a 7th-round pick. Deebo Samuel can't get himself open, can't free himself open against man coverage. He doesn't separate. He doesn't get open. He's not a great route runner. He lacks that short area quickness and explosion. So who's left? What are we talking about? Chris Conley's been hurt. Cowing's been concussed. Guarendo's a running back that they don't want to use as a receiver. So who's separating? When I was saying go get Tutu Atwell, there were people in the chat going, "Oh, Krug, how tired I am of hearing you say that." You don't have any speed. You need somebody to create some space. Offensive football is about creating space. Creating space comes down to really 3 things: play calling, power, and speed. And the Niners don't have a lot of, to put it all on Kyle is, he can't scheme it all open. And they don't have a lot of speed. And they don't have a lot of quickness. And they're not getting a lot of separation. And then Brock Purdy's line is failing him. The 49ers penalties are killing them. They're falling behind the sticks. They're getting to 3rd and 23. And Brock's not a good enough player to just say, "Hey, Brock, it's 3rd and 23. Make it happen, big boy. It's not as simple as that. It's not the way it works. You heard Baldy say, I don't think he's playing great, but then at the end of the video, he's like, he sees the field and he's accurate with the ball. What are we talking about then? He sees the field, he's accurate with the ball, he processes what he sees. The Niners ran the ball well, but they're not getting explosives. Why are they not getting explosives? Because they don't have explosive players. That's why they're not getting explosive. Kittle, not explosive. And he's really not explosive if you don't throw him the ball. Deebo's lost his explosiveness. JJ didn't have any. Ayuk was their deep threat. Ayuk was their explosiveness. They knew that they needed help in this area, which is why they drafted Jacob Cowing. It's probably why they signed Chris Conley. But they don't have any vertical speed. They don't have any quickness. They don't have any separation. And they have a line that's pretty sketchy. And they've got a team that's making a lot of mistakes. So combine mistakes, you fall behind the chains. They ran it well in this game, but for the most part, the last month or so, they haven't really run the ball well. And you have receivers that don't separate. Hey, Brock, make it happen. And he's not going to be able to do it. So before we sit there and go, Brock's this and Brock's not that and Brock can't do this, you just heard from a guy who watches the film and knows what the fuck he's talking about. And he said he still sees the field. He's still accurate with the ball. So what's the issue? The rush is in his face, so he's running more than ever. He's looking to bail out of the pocket faster than ever because he's experiencing lots of pressure. So he's bailing from the pocket sometimes prematurely to extend plays. His receivers aren't separating. Every ball that he's throwing is the equivalent of a 50-50 ball. And thus, you're going to have some extra turnovers. So what's the real issue? His line isn't good enough. His receivers aren't good enough. That's the issue with Brock Purdy. And it's all coming down on top of his head. And then I thought maybe the most interesting part of this was when Baldy kind of discussed the Bills' defensive plan under McDermott. They love the two high safety look. They're going to give you that double high safety look, try to keep everything in front of them. They're not going to give you big playability. And that's part of the reason the Niners had so much success running the ball. They weren't facing, 8 men in the box because the Bills played two deep safeties. But two deep safeties means that you got to run the ball and you got to make plays underneath. And the Niners just couldn't do it. I mean, they ran the ball at times, but then they couldn't, sustain drives. They got in the red zone, they couldn't score. They fell behind the chains with penalties. They had turnovers. There you go. Game, set, match. And then I think it's interesting that Baldy says, hey, where's George Kittle? George Kittle ran less than 10 routes all day. He had 2 targets. He had 1 catch. This is after he had 4 targets in Super Bowl 58. Come on, Kyle. You got to use George Kittle. If you love him as a run blocker, that's great, but you need him as a receiver. So get another run blocker and use him as a receiver. All right, let's hear more from Baldy here. Baldy weighs in on Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall's an interesting guy because, we all are rooting for Pearsall. The guy was shot. He's a good kid. He's really likable. But in the last 3 games, he's run 63 routes. He's gotten targeted 3 times. He has no catches. He's literally running around out there just working up a sweat. I don't even notice him on the field. Here's what Baldy had to say.
How does Ricky Pearsall run 63 routes the last 3 games and only get 3 targets and 0 catches? Is he not getting open? What's going on with that, Baldy?
Well, what surprised me about that stat right there, because I did not know that, is that he's even run 63 routes because you don't even notice him. You don't even know he's on the field.
Wow.
That's how invisible he is. I'm thinking, well, where is he? All right, I see Juwan out there slipping and sliding. I see George doing what he's doing. Where's the ball even going for the most part? It's not really, I don't even know who it's going to. Obviously, it's not going to Pearsall, but I know. I talked to him on the field before the game in Green Bay. He said he's here to beat man coverage. I haven't seen him get open. I haven't seen him even look at him where he's even being featured in any way right now.
Wow.
So there you go. That's not good. When Baldy's like, I don't even notice him on the field, that's not good. This is your first-round draft choice. This guy's a first-round draft pick. He's a bust until he ain't. And right now he's a bust. He's the invisible man. I mean, he's running around, but he doesn't get targeted. He doesn't make catches. He doesn't have production. And then ask the question right now: who would you rather have, Ricky Pearsall or Ladd McConkey? Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Legette? Ricky Pearsall or Keon Coleman? All those receivers went right after Ricky Pearsall. They could have had any of those guys, and they didn't want him. They wanted Ricky Pearsall. Lynch has maintained that Pearsall is going to be a very good pro. Hey, it's time to start seeing it. It's time to start seeing it. Otherwise, I don't want to hear it. Okay? Don't tell me he's going to be a good player. Show me he's a good player. Don't tell me he's a great route runner. Show me he can get open. Let's see some production. This is a do or don't world. This is a do or don't league. And right now, Ricky isn't doing it. So, is he a bust? He's a bust right now. Maybe he won't be a bust when it's all said and done. He's a bust right now, period. All right, let's hear Baldy on Deebo. Deebo, another guy, big name, big rep. Outside of being a kick returner, what is the guy? I mean, he's a $30 million kick returner. Here's Baldy on Deebo.
Nothing. I mean, nothing's going on with Deebo. I mean, he doesn't separate when he's not getting open. There's nothing that looks exceptional about him. I mean, we liked him in the dual role, but why would you hand the ball off to him if you had, before this game, McCaffrey and Mason, who both played really well, and Guerrero? Like, what carries you want to take away from those guys to give it to Deebo? You don't. So, we've seen games where he lined up and started the game at tailback because of injuries and stuff. So you're taking that away from him. And now what is he? Is he a slot receiver? Is he an outside receiver? Like, there really doesn't have a position right now. He's just kind of a playmaker when given the chance, but he's not really going to be able to create a whole lot on his own by getting open.
All right, there you go. Brian Baldinger on Deebo. And the bottom line is, Deebo he's got build-up speed, but he's lost a lot of his quickness and a lot of his agility and a lot of his change of direction. He doesn't separate against man coverage. He doesn't free himself open against coverage. He's not a dynamic running back. Why would you hand him the ball when you can hand it to Guerrero, who's way faster and bigger? Why would you hand it to him when you can hand it to CMC or Mason? Now those guys are out, so now maybe that will change the dynamic at running back. But he's just not that dynamic. What he is he's got build-up speed, so he's going to be a very good kick returner. But other than that, he doesn't give you a lot. So I think you're probably seeing the twilight of Deebo's run here in San Francisco. He's a big play guy. He's been a big play guy. He's a playmaker, but man, right now he's got build-up speed only. He doesn't have that quickness, doesn't have that first, second step acceleration that you have to have at wide receiver or running back in the NFL. So he's a good kickoff returner. He's strong. If he holds onto the ball, that's better. He fumbled it in this last game, but he's a good kick returner. Other than that, you got to cut him. $30 million for a kick returner? No, I don't think so. All right, let's talk lastly about the Niner defense. The Niner defense in the red zone was atrocious. Buffalo went 4 for 4 and scored 4 touchdowns on 4 trips to the red zone. James Cook had a 65-yard touchdown run. It was the first play that Jalen Graham was on the field. Graham and Brown kind of bumped into each other. And then Cook had a jump cut to the outside and was gone. Went untouched down the sideline. But you saw the pursuit. The only guy who had a chance to catch him was Mustafa. Everybody else was nowhere near him. The Niners don't have enough speed on defense, period. They got a slow defensive line, they got bad linebackers, and they have undisciplined raw safeties who take way too many gambles. So when that's what you have, you got huge plays against you, and that's what's going on right now. The Niners' defensive line is a shadow of what it used to be. All right, let's hear Baldy. He was asked about Nick Sorensen, the Niners' defensive coordinator, and he kind of throws Sorensen an excuse here. But here's Baldy, and then we'll talk about it.
Well, you can only, you got to have the horses, in order to kind of scheme some of this stuff up. But still, if you have no horses, you better figure out some scheme where you're getting a free hitter. I don't see any of that. I see Arizona doing that over and over and over again from Nick Rallis. Like, I see unbelievable. In fact, I texted one of the offensive line in Minnesota last week about some of these third down blitzes that got home to Sam Darnold like three times in a row, and they just out-schemed them. But I don't see that at all. I don't see that type of creativity from Nick right now. And maybe he feels like he can't hold up on the back end, and he's afraid to do it. But, you can't let teams just go up and down the field like Green Bay and Buffalo are doing to you.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is whatever they're doing, do something else. The teams are 9 for 9 in the red zone on you in the last 2 games. You're no resistance at all. Now, to defend Nick, he doesn't have the horses. Where's Nick Bosa? He's not in there. Where's Javon Hargrave? He's not in there. Those are your 2 best defensive linemen. Where's Dre Greenlaw? He's not in there. Where's Fred Warner? He's not in there. Those are your 2 best linebackers. Where's Demo Lenore? He's not in there. Do you see what I'm saying? Your best players in this Buffalo game were all not on the field. So that's going to impact things. But you can't sit there and just die slowly. You have to be able to dial up some pressure. If you're a defensive coordinator and all you do is have a 4-3 and you never blitz linebackers, you never blitz any DBs, and you just play, a soft shell zone behind and rush 4. I could be the defensive coordinator in that situation. If you're never going to adjust, if there's never going to be any adjustments, if you're never going to send any extra rushers, if you're just going to sit back there and say, well, we're going to get it done with our front 4, the Niners blitz less than any team in pro football, I believe. I think they're like a 13% blitz team. They don't blitz. So if you don't blitz and you're getting it done with your front 4, but then your front 4 is not getting it done, and your linebackers on the second level are atrocious. You used to have Greenlaw, Aziz, and Fred Warner, and now you're looking at some combination of Jalen Graham, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, and Devondre Campbell. That's it right there. That's the issue. You had 3 great linebackers. Now you have 3 mediocre to below average linebackers. You don't have any creativity in your blitz packages. I heard somebody give Sorensen a bogus excuse a couple weeks ago. Well, if you don't blitz often, you're not that good at it. Well, guess what? Part of being able to be a good defensive coordinator is being able to adapt. In some games, you're going to have to bring extra pressure. And if you don't have the ability to bring extra pressure because you're not good at it, then you're not good at your job. That's part of your job. So, you heard Baldy there. No creative fronts, no creative blitz packages. Probably is not that confident with a lot of youth in the secondary. Trying to get it done rushing just his front 4. It ain't working. He doesn't have the horses, and Shanahan's like, hey, I'm a big fan of Nick. So Shanahan's a believer they don't have the horses. Well, guess what, fellas? Somebody is to fucking blame, all right? You want to blame Nick Sorensen? Fine. If you want to take blame off Nick Sorensen, fine. But guess what? If he doesn't have the horses, somebody is to fucking blame for that, okay? And since Shanahan and Lynch are the ones with control over the personnel, I would point the finger at them because they're saying, hey, it ain't Sorensen. Sorensen's awesome. Sorensen's great. Sorensen's the man. All right, if Sorensen's so great, then as Baldy says, you don't have the horses. That means it's on your personnel department. So either Sorensen is not good as a defensive coordinator or Sorensen doesn't have the horses and your personnel department ain't worth 2 shits. But either way, it ain't working. It ain't working. And so you can blame Sorensen or you can pull blame off of Sorensen. And it sounds like the Niners want to pull blame off of Sorensen. But who drafted all these donkeys? Who signed all these horrendous defenders? Yeah, exactly. All right. The video, of course, was brought to you by Better and Pig in a Pickle. Thanks to them. Thanks to you for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.